Greetings and happy Halloween season, Flesh Wound Freaks, and welcome to Analog Nightmares. I'm Flesh Wound Dan, joined by producer Todd.
Good evening.
We haven't, no, that's not true. We had an Analog Nightmares recently. We said we're going to do more of them, and very excited tonight. Highly anticipated releases from Visual Vengeance. I should actually point out, because I know somebody's going to see it and just go, wait a minute. Not shot on video. We are aware of that. But they're SOV adjacent. There's a lot of films that are SOV adjacent.
Okay, I'm glad you brought it up because, like, it's supposed to be the SOV line. I was like, I see film grain.
Yeah, it's the Super 8 and then the blood. And I know there's like going to be that one comment at some point on the video is like, actually. So, no, we know.
Well, I mean, it wouldn't be a raw comment.
We're aware.
It's the spirit of SOV, and I think that's what because we had this conversation about another movie, and we still haven't really made a decision, so I won't say what it is.
Yeah, Analog Nightmares is kind of about, well, SOV for sure, but also just those 80s VHS oddities, and that 100% applies to tonight's movies. So that's, we are aware. Just before the smart ass in the chat decides to just go, actually.
Normally that would be Dan. He's acting like, oh yeah, who would do such a thing?
Oh, definitely. If any of you guys reviewed it out there, any fellow podcasters, I will be that asshole.
No, absolutely.
I will definitely be that asshole. But anyways, so I acknowledged it. I acknowledged it, Tad. We're good. So Visual Vengeance, which if you haven't seen our other reviews, I mean, this has become in such a short amount of time the most collectible label, I think, in a lot of ways. Their artwork, their extra features, including the extra goodies that they include in these Blu-rays, are insane. I mean, they're on par with anybody, and they exceed most in terms of quality. So I've really enjoyed what they put out so far. It feels like they're really kind of curating and picking like really unique stuff. Not always movies that are going to work for everybody, but certainly they haven't put out any throwaway titles. I'll put it that way. And I'm curious to see what you think of the movies tonight, and what all of you guys in the chat might think if you've picked these up. Yes, we'll get right into it. With that being said, let's see. We're going to kick it off with the oldest film of the evening, which is 1986's The Abomination, which just showing off that beautiful cover art there. And as you see, and we can show you a little bit more of the actual disc later, but so The Abomination from 1986 and director Brett McCormick. Deep in the heart of rural Texas, a TV evangelist exorcises a tumor from the body of a loyal worshiper who soon coughs up the growth. Unknown to her, the cancer is actually a carnivorous life form that slithers its way into her son Cody while he sleeps, growing inside him until he is completely under its control. Now Cody must feed the beast fresh victims to keep them both alive. As the monster grows larger and larger, it threatens to feast on everyone in its path. One of the most legendary and notorious VHS releases of the video store era, Brett McCormick's Super 8 Gorefest The Abomination enjoys its first ever Blu-ray with newly created bonus features and never before seen outtakes, images, and more. So this is an absolutely stacked disc. We'll get into that after the review. So this is one that... So the VHS was super rare, and I had it. It's one of those ones, I've told this story before, but I liquidated my VHS like right before I realized that it was like a big thing. Just assumed it was dead. Eventually everything would come out on DVD, and Well,
Yeah, I don't know what you were thinking with that.
I don't know. It's one of those things. And there were some stragglers that I found in my closet, like when I moved, and I sold some of those for, I want to say like 400 something was like the top. So, and in my head, I'm thinking like, shit, I know the Abomination VHS is worth a lot still. So I don't even want to look, but I did
I'm
have,
gonna do that right.
Todd being a dick, but
I didn't say I was gonna tell you on air.
ugh.
If I could
I'm
find it.
sure it's worth at least a few hundred or more.
It's funny. It's the way tape trading works now. It doesn't it's weird because you're gonna get more money for a sealed Back to the Future than you are gonna get something for something super rare. Or I should maybe Halloween 2 is a better example than Back to the Future, but you could still make some
Yeah.
money off. It's weird.
That's bizarre.
The super common sealed tapes, but that's like the one everyone like everyone like who's seen Halloween 2. So I mean, versus Abomination, you got a smaller pool to choose from.
That is true, but I know like Demon Queen sold for a ton.
Yeah, that
Back
was
in the
also
day.
before the Switch, which has been in the last couple of years.
Yeah, I
It's
can't
weird.
say I've paid attention. Even doing eBay, it's like I don't really find a lot of tapes that aren't super common out in the wild anymore at all. It's
Yeah.
been
Well, the
a
Massacre,
decade at least since I found big box anywhere.
yeah, the Massacre VHS, which is a reprint, is a couple 300, 400.
Oof.
The actual original one is about 200. Well, it's not a sold price, but you're looking at a good amount if Dan
Yeah.
didn't sell it. Sorry. There you
And
go.
then he gave the number anyways. God damn it.
Well,
But
oh shit. I'm not gonna read that. This is the one that
yeah,
actually
just
sold
shut up, Todd. Shut up, Todd.
$500.
Ugh,
It's because it's not a cut box. Was yours a cut box?
it was not a cut box.
And that's a sold price, Dan.
Uh,
But
well,
here's the
anyway.
good news. You now own what is an even better looking copy than that
Yeah, that's right.
VHS.
So whatever sucker
And
paid $500, fuck you. Look at
and it
this.
doesn't have those
Beautiful.
special features that one does it?
No, it does not.
See,
Does
this is the
not.
opposite of what Dan does to me when he just digs in on my lack of Toxic Avenger standing.
You're gonna have that in this year. You will try, even if you have to pay the ridiculous inflated
I have
price.
not
You will do
seen
it.
one for sale that has the extra mop attachment. That's the thing that's going to set me over.
Ooh. So if anybody has access to that, you're going to get a big payday from Todd.
And if you want to see what it looks like, it is featured in the Toxic Avenger Part 3, The Last Temptation.
Yeah,
And we're way off track. Dan,
we
get us
are.
back on track.
All right.
Abomination.
The Abomination.
We did.
So I always really liked this movie. It was something the director, he was just coming off of a film called Tabloid, which in the VHS trading days, gray market days, that one was quite desirable itself. That's actually a much bigger budget movie in comparison. I think that was like north of $100,000 versus the couch change that I think they made this movie with. But that was another one I was always kind of hunting down because it took me a while to get a copy of the Abomination. That's not one that I saw like early in life or anything. It took me some time to get it. I want to say Daytona Beach. I think a video store somewhere. I don't know why I randomly remember it, but I think that's where I finally was able to get a copy of the Abomination. But so one thing that this movie has going for it versus other SOV or SOV adjacent movies is it has a cool creature and a cool gimmick. The way this sort of Little Shop of Horrors-esque creature just pops out of the cupboard or the toilet at one point, eating one character. That's a very cool gimmick because a lot of SOV stuff that try to pull off a monster, usually that doesn't go too well. This I actually thought was a really nifty, practical creature, which is something rare in these films. Now, this does have a lot of trademarks of some of these SOV titles of the time, where shots tend to go on way too long. In fact, this one, at the very beginning, you essentially get a nightmare sequence that has almost all of the gore and kill footage in it, which uh, was, kind of an unusual decision, but that's how it goes with a lot of these movies. In fact, another one that I'm pretty sure Visual Vengeance is putting out that the director also worked on, Ozone, Attack of the Redneck Mutants. That one was notorious for it, and I'm kind of curious to check that out again once they finally put it out. But so it does have that. It's one of those movies where it's right around 90, and it would have played even better at 70 minutes, which is what a lot of these should be. But this was that era where it's like, oh, you got to be 90 or very like on the verge of 90. That's just what they wanted.
That was the distributor call. If you came in with 87, they'd be like, all right. But
yeah,
if you came in with like 68, you're like, yeah, you better go fucking pad that shit out, man.
Yeah,
always the best call.
Yeah, and this has some very endearing sort of regional horror feel to it. This was, of course, shot in Texas. And I do really like this one quite a bit. I thought the kills were all a highlight. Like I said, it's a nasty monster. There is a little bit of comedy, which is weird because this is a little bit more serious for a good deal of the runtime. There's not a lot of yucks, but for some reason, Brother Fogg, our televangelist character, just has uncontrollable flatulence. So it's like some comedy that they kind of shoehorn in there. And it's not much of a spoiler to say that the Abomination gets a bite out of him while he's on the shitter. So that was quite funny. And just seeing this Abomination character eat people and just suck them into the cupboard, I thought was really funny. And like I said, with a lot of these movies too, some of the weaknesses almost work in its favor. There's one scene where a character's reacting to the Abomination, which again is in a cupboard. There's no immediate danger. You could just get up and run out the back door, but it just like the shot goes forever and is just screaming in terror at this Abomination, and the scene just goes on and on and on, that it actually kind of becomes funny. We get a head sliced in half by a chainsaw. That was cool. All obviously practical effects, which again set these B movies apart from modern day stuff where it's, that CGI trickle blood spray, which is just awful. So this one, obviously a flawed movie. Some character development stuff could be better. Like I said, shots definitely go too long. But in terms of the action and the kills and the gore, this is well above your standard SOV quality, in my personal opinion. And this is an oddity that I'm really glad ended up on Visual Vengeance's label, because this hasn't had a DVD release. It was again, very obscure VHS even back in the day. This was kind of tough to get a hold of. It took me a while. So I'm sure a lot of people are going to be seeing this for the first time. And if you're a fan of Basket Case or Frank Henenlotter in general, there's a lot of that in the feel for this movie.
Careful at setting expectations too high, though.
Yes, definitely a little bit more rough around the edges.
SOV Henenlotter, maybe.
Yes, SOV Henenlotter, which SOV Henenlotter works for me. And you can see that spirit of H.G. Lewis too. Like, I'm a huge H.G. Lewis mark, and I know H.G. Lewis was an inspiration for the director Brett McCormick, along with famous monsters because he was a monster kid, and that Forrest J. Ackerman and that magazine were just, I mean, some of the most beloved directors in our genre might not even be horror fans if it weren't for famous monsters. So much like Fangoria for us, famous monsters made a lot
which,
of fans.
which is making a comeback. It was just announced recently.
Yeah.
What's
Yeah.
his name from Slipknot ended up buying it. Well, so, and he's
Oh,
putting out all the back issues for free on the internet, so that's cool.
that is very cool. What did you think, Tad?
I think you liked it a lot more than me. Like I didn't.
Okay.
Hey, I like the effects. It goes back to the running time, and it drags too many places where I think that if they didn't have to hit that 90-minute, runtime from the air, like we said, about 70
Mhm.
minutes, I think this would have played a lot tighter. I still have
Yeah.
fun with it. But out of the two, it's not my favorite. I do think it's well worth checking out, and the disc is packed. So, we're speaking of which, Dan, what is on the disc?
All right. So on the disc, you get a commentary with Brett McCormick, Rob Hochschild, and Michael Desiderio of Visual Vengeance. Hopefully, I got your names right. Very informative. We also get a commentary with Tony Strauss of Wings Chop magazine. Actually, my old buddy Brian Harris, I think, might have written for Wings Chop. Used to do shows with him.
Wasn't that his magazine?
You know what? I don't know if it was his magazine or if it was Tony's magazine. I'm not
Okay.
sure. But I know he was involved in Wings Chop.
I know he's heavily involved in it too. Yeah.
Yeah. I remember back in the day. I have some Wings Chop magazines actually that are quite good. I know I have their Jess Franco one, which it was really a good read. But they talk a little bit about the Evil Dead and Basket Case inspirations, H.G. Lewis, of course. Kind of a running gag in the movie, because again, they did have to for the distributor pad it out, so we keep getting these random shots of this horse. So they do kind of have a sense of humor about this random horse that they just keep cutting to. I think there was a lot more of that in Ozone, so I'm kind of curious to watch that again. On the Tony Strauss commentary, he talks a little bit about this being a staple for VHS collectors, and talks a little bit about the family connection. Rex Morton, who plays Brother Fogg, being the director's stepdad. A lot of great information. This is one of those discs where honestly those two commentaries alone would have made the disc, but you also get let's see here, Monster Kid Movie Maverick, a new feature-length Brett McCormick interview, which that runs at 1 hour and 14 minutes. So that is essentially another feature length documentary. He talks just again about being, the TV being his babysitter back in the day. We have this in common, actually. He's a big fan of the Killer Tree movie From Hell It Came, which was a big influence on him. If you guys haven't watched From Hell It Came, that's a good one for Halloween. If you like really sort of cheesy monster movies, From Hell It Came's really good. It is on Blu-ray now, I think from Warner Archive. So if you're making a list. Also, it's got some footage from his backyard, his first backyard movie, middle school movie, Crypt of the Werewolf. I love seeing stuff like this because yeah, you can tell this guy loves this kind of stuff, and it comes through in the movies that he made for sure. So it was nice seeing that. Also, he talks a little bit about working on a monster movie, Crater Lake Monster, which was kind of a troubled production, and he kind of goes into that a little bit, talks about Tabloid and getting that made, and trying to raise money from Ross Perot, of all people. That's a story that he tells in this. His connection with Glenn Coburn, the directors of Bloodsuckers from Outer Space, another guy I actually interviewed with either Melissa or Brian back in the day, or I think Chris might have been in on that one. And it kind of goes over the history. This is kind of a career piece. So he talks a little bit about this, and then he talks about some of the other movies that he did, a lot of which are obviously coming from Visual Vengeance or Wild Eye, I suppose, at some point. And it's impressive what he did. Abomination was shot in 10 days, was shot back to back with Ozone, which like I said, I am curious to check that out again at some point. If you're a fan of movie making, watch this doc on him. It's really quite good. And he also starts to kind of go into some Repligator stuff on this doc, oddly enough. So you may want to buy both movies, but you do get a little bit about Repligator as well. What did I not cover for extras? We also have an actress interview with Blue Thompson, who was his wife at the time. That's a nice interview that runs. My notes are all out of order. That's a shorter one. That one runs, I think, around 10 minutes or so. 6 minutes. There you go. And she really short, brief thing. She talks about obviously being married to the director. We get a 5-minute interview with Victoria Cheney, which is actually, she's quite funny. We get an interview with the VHS distributor, Michael Jack Scholl, that runs 14 minutes. But this one's interesting if you're a fan or a VHS collector, because he talks about the process of producing VHS tapes and beta and the artwork back then, how the whole scene worked with video fairs trying to sell your VHS tapes to store owners. This guy's been around for a very, very long time. If you're curious about marketing and stuff, I thought this was a really well put together piece. I'd like to see more actually from him. He put out Cannibal Campout and Wood Chipper Massacre, which I believe we covered recently on Analog Nightmares. We also get location tour, outtakes, raw footage, behind the scenes, Brett McCormick's Super 8 films, and also a limited edition comic book that is included in this release, and a folded mini poster. You get the stickers that you usually get. And my God, I think there's so many extras. I covered that more than I talked about the movie, but there you go. I highly recommend this as a release. Like most Visual Vengeance titles, they may be niche for a lot of you. You know, not everybody's going to be a fan of an LA AIDS jabber. Although I do recommend you buy LA AIDS jabber for a stocking stuffer this Christmas.
It's a great conversation piece. Dan, you never finished off showing up off the set.
Oh, open it up. All right. So I don't think Visual Vengeance does titties, but I got to check. There is the inner art there. I believe the back is the exact same. And when I open this up, you can see there's the disc art there.
What's the reversible art?
All right, Todd, I will show it to you.
Is it the VHS cover art?
There you go.
Yeah, that looks like the VHS art.
Very cool. The back is the same, obviously.
Yeah.
And you get the stickers that they always include, this is really cool. And I guess there's some other stickers that might just be exclusive that they send to us. So I feel special because I don't think, but you do get those. You get this booklet, which kind of has some information on the movie. Always really nice. And here is the mini comic book there. You can kind of see some of the art there that you can experience. It's a really nice extra. And last but not least, you get a miniature poster. So I want to put them over before I rate the movie, which this obviously is super cool. This will probably go up on my wall when I find the right frame. I mean, how much more that they do on these movies than a Scream Factory or even a company like Vinegar Syndrome that obviously does stack their discs. I mean, they're at least on par. I mean, my God, they give these movies the royal treatment. And for a guy like me that has an affinity for this era of filmmaking and these really just weird, batshit kind of films from the 80s, I appreciate it very much. Now, my rating of the actual movie is going to be higher than Todd's, obviously, acknowledging that this is not for everybody, but I give this, as a lover of SOV, I give this 3.5 stars. I do think it's well above your average SOV title, and it looks like a lot of artistry and talent was put into it in terms of the monster effects. So there you go.
See, it's weird because, like, in all actuality, I'd give it a 2.5 because it's kind of in the middle.
Okay.
It's those effects though that make it stand out. That it's like it makes me want to give it a 3. But I mean, it is like it's one of those things. It's like it's such a borderline. I could go either. You could ask me tomorrow. It could be a 3, but yeah, 2.5.
Yeah, they are what?
Just skip it. It's
weird. Oh, I don't know what you're talking about, so I will skip it. But no, the release is just so stellar, and it is unusual, but I just like it, and I think it pairs really well with a lot of different things too. And those monster effects, like I said, watch a few SOVs that attempt similar things and they don't come off well. Sometimes they luck out and there's some irony to it that makes people like them, but this was actually really well put together. And I remember Ozone having some really cool shit as well. Even though that movie's very padded, I do remember some really cool effects in that movie. So.
I'm looking forward to revisiting that one. I mean, it's not my favorite of the 2 Ozone films from back in the day, but I do remember enjoying this one too.
You know, I am 100% convinced that it's absolute bullshit. But when I was making movies, I was told by my partner that he had permission to remake that. Now, knowing who he was, he may have been assuming, and that might have been complete horseshit.
Which Ozone are we? Because I did kind of reference the Tempe one. Which one are you referring to?
No, that's what I thought. When he said Ozone, I was going to J.R. Bookwalter.
Okay.
I was like, oh, holy shit. Well, that's a very reasonably well-regarded low-budget movie. And then he's like, no, Ozone Attack of the Redneck Mutants. And I was like, oh, okay, well, that one's definitely not as well known. But at one point, I sat down again and watched that one is on DVD, but it was like directly from the filmmaker. So not a lot of people have it. So that'll also be something I'm sure everyone's eager to get on Blu-ray. So yeah, I am very curious to see it because at one point I was thinking like, okay, well, we're going to make it 70 minutes. If this is real and you're not just assuming because you wrote some fan letter to the director.
Can you imagine if they would have released that like 2.5 hour boarding house cut? Thank God some at least.
Before we get into the next movie, do you like Boarding House? Because I think Boarding House is a lot of fun.
I like Boarding House. I don't like the 2.5 hour long cut of Boarding House. Which, if you want to do a watch along, there's a torturous one.
Yeah, we'll go for the non 2.5 hour watch along for that. But like I said, it was understandable just back then. It didn't need to be 2.5 hours, but you did.
Yeah,
Take
I do enjoy the shorter cut.
It's funny how that's changed with me because I used to be like, I can remember when like Raw went 3 hours. It's like, yes, I've got
Oh,
3 hours of wrestling.
yeah.
And then it's like as an adult and like you could trim the fat on a lot of
I
this
got
and get
shit
it.
to do.
Yeah.
I
I'm
don't
not an
got time to watch 35 fucking hours of wrestling this week.
I'm not an editor like you, obviously, but I look at things now and I think like an editor. It's like cut, cut, cut. Like I still remember like on MILFs versus Zombies and how they would just add extra shit. And I was just like, it doesn't fucking need this. Like,
Unless
you don't
ass and titties, cut it.
well, yeah. I mean, again, now that could have probably have been a decent 90-minute B movie at one point, but director. But they were adding stuff like, oh, it'll be really funny if we dress this guy we know in a dress and just have him running down the street. I was like, why the fuck are we doing? It's like, cut it, keep it tight. People will appreciate that. I hope
I
it's
don't
a
know about you,
theme.
Dan, but I like it tight, not loose.
Keep it tight. Keep it tight. And on that note, we will go to our next movie. But I will say for the record, I wasn't bored with The Abomination. Kind of worked for me.
Yeah, like for me, my biggest thing is it drug. Like I said, it needed that 70-minute mark would have been perfect.
Yeah,
But I
agree.
do think it's well worth checking out. I mean,
Oh,
if
I
you're
highly recommend
yeah,
it.
if you're a fan of practical effects and just this era of filmmaking, yeah.
So, Chad, I know you and I both appreciate some blood, boobs, and beasts. So, our next title, which right here, Repligator, which I'll show off more of the disc after. Once again, really
Don't
excited.
worry, I'll remind you if you don't remember.
100%. So this is also from director Brett McCormick, and this is a 1998 film, although that's a little, I'll get into it. This movie kind of has an interesting history. So, The Few, The Proud, The Gator Babes. From director Brett McCormick comes the most screwball, brain-melting late 90s direct-to-video entries ever made. At a top-secret military facility, a group of scientists and army brass work on the Replicator project. The experiment quickly goes awry when it turns all of the male soldiers into gorgeous, scantily clad nymphets, who then morph into alligators when they reach the peak of sexual excitement. Starring the original Leatherface himself, Gunnar Hansen, and iconic Scream Queen Brinke Stevens, Repligator enjoys its first time ever on Blu-ray with brand new interviews and insights from the cast and creators of this sexy sci-fi send-up. All right, so Repligator. So this one, I'm going to say off the bat that I think having a love and an affinity for 50s science fiction will kind of help you with this. This one's super low budget. This was actually completed in 1995, but once again, they needed extra stuff. So the Brinke Stevens and Gunnar Hansen footage was shot later. So the movie essentially was completed in 1998. But if you like 50s science fiction, particularly the really cheesy 50s science fiction, rubber masks and just kind of that old school storyline with the military and X-ray specs, which are also included. I'll show those in a minute. And not even just the 50s, because I think this pairs really well with Invasion of the Bee Girls, one of my favorite B movies, no pun intended. I think these two go together. Now, obviously, you might be listening to the synopsis. This is not soft core. I should throw that out there. There's no like bump and grind or anything. This is not like a Fred Olen Ray or Jim Wynorski softcore flick. There is a ton of nudity, but it's all pretty much topless nudity. There's not a lot of sex. It's all kind of played for laughs. And I will say Gunnar Hansen and Brinke Stevens, they do comedy quite well. They don't have a ton of screen time in this, but what you do have is very good with those two. I believe producer Win Winberg actually, if I'm not mistaken, directed the Brinke Stevens, Gunnar Hansen stuff. This movie was shot in just 4 days, and they used leftover film stock from the director's other film, Biotech Warrior. And essentially the name came about when they were at the American film market, and there was a movie called Repligator coming out that I guess they thought was going to be a big deal. So there you go. Repligator was born. So I really like this movie quite a bit. It's, again, some people may be disappointed if you're just looking for the typical bump and grind. It's not really that kind of movie exactly. It's really kind of more of a, I guess you could call it a sex comedy, just a little leaning more into the laughs than the actual sex part. And I had a really good time with it. It's goofy. It's very, very goofy, more so than the Abomination, because the Abomination does have a more serious tone, even though you get the random fart humor inserted in. This one's very, very goofy. If you're looking for like a out and out monster movie with gore and shit, then you might be a little bit disappointed. But I laughed my ass off like I always do because I'm 12 years old forever. What did you think of this one, Todd? Because this just kind of took me back. We don't get a lot of this anymore.
Yeah, this is actually like my first time seeing it too. I thought I'd seen it before, but I hadn't. I really had a good time with it. You're right. It was funny. It was fun. It was light. It wasn't anything too serious or too heavy. It was just a good fun, B movie throwback.
Yeah. Boobs, ray
Boobs.
guns,
Yeah,
X-ray glasses,
blood
yeah,
and beasts.
yeah. It really does work perfectly, and it's probably better that they didn't go the bump and grind route because less people could enjoy it. Although, like I said, you get plenty of skin in here, including Brinke, so that's a big selling point. The characters, I mean, we have a character called Colonel Sanders, and but there's not a single moment of this that is serious at all. But that's what I actually did. I did pair it up with Invasion of the Bee Girls and just had a really good cheesy sci-fi monster night.
Perfect.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah. As far as extra features on this one, we have a new director interview that runs 24 minutes. There's a little bit of crossover on the special features for the other movies, but for the most part, they do a pretty good job of from Abomination, I should say. He talks a little bit more about Tabloid, which was a horror anthology spoof of tabloids at the time. I really do hope they have that one too. He talks some of the struggles to cut together feature-length films, which was hard because some of these like B or even C level movies, you had to make them so fast, and this didn't even really have a script. They were just kind of figuring it out as they went along. He talks about using some of the masks that were left over on the Jeffrey Combs film that he did called Time Tracers, and just getting through that short 4-day shoot. There's also an 18-minute interview with producer Win Winberg, and he talks about really not coming into the project until after the raw footage was already shot. Like I said, he kind of came into the picture to do the Gunnar Hansen and Brinke Stevens stuff. and talks about making this on a sound stage from another movie before it had to be torn down, and some more good insight on the Texas movie scene, at the low budget movie scene at the time, which I should say Brett McCormick is also an author, and he has a book out on the sort of low budget regional Texas horror films of that era that you guys might want to check out. We also get a 7-minute interview with Brinke Stevens. She talks a little bit about her 40+ year career, some of the early sort of mainstream movies she did, like Spinal Tap and Psycho 3, Three Amigos, and kind of how she segued into horror movies. She talks about playing a scientist here and actually being a scientist, because Brinke Stevens is a real marine biologist. So she's a beautiful and very intelligent lady. Talks a little bit about just the film in general, and there's a connection with Brinke Stevens, and she talks about the movie because she shot a film in Iowa called Mommy, and that was literally in Jess Graham's backyard, I believe. He actually got to meet Brinke Stevens because I think they were shooting it. Jess, if you listen to this, you can correct me. Maybe it was a neighbor's yard or something, but yeah, Jess actually got to interact with Brinke Stevens on Mommy. We also get a short interview with actor Carl Merritt, who plays Colonel Sanders. A 3-minute interview with actor Randy Clower, who played the villain Dr. Fields. A lot of archival stuff that's ported over from the DVD release, which that was very, very out of print. So we also get two more commentaries on this, which again would have been more than enough, with one with the director and Glenn Coburn, the director of Bloodsuckers from Outer Space. And he has some good info on the film. We also get a second commentary from, I want to say the name right, Sam Panico of B&S About Movies, and Bill Van Ryn of Drive-In Asylum. This one is also absolutely stacked with extras, and just showing it off. This is the inner art, which is very, very cool. And open it up here. And I should say Repligator, I know this one was super hard to find before that DVD. This is the inner art there. Not sure why it's orange, but you know, that's cool. We also get, as I said, extras. You get the Repligator X-ray specs right there. More stickers included. And the poster right there. As always, Visual Vengeance brings it when it comes to these extra features. And there's also this little card right there. So there you go, guys. That's the latest from Visual Vengeance. And I think we have another round of Visual Vengeance stuff coming in November, so we don't have to wait long. I know you guys were talking in the chat that there was a long lull where they didn't put anything out, and I was bummed out too, because I was like, fuck, I was really loving this label, but it appears they're back at it. I know Vampires and Other Stereotypes is one that is coming out soon, Lichen Colony, and a bunch of others. So yeah, very, very excited to check all of that out. So guys, oh fuck, we didn't rate Repligator. Todd, what do you rate Repligator?
I'm 3.5 on Repligator. It was close on 4, but it's a lot of fun.
I am as well. Once again, this very specific audience, but I love these films, and I love the Visual Vengeance label. It's become one of my favorite boutique label companies or offshoots, I guess. That, yeah, I'm very excited to pick up Lichen Colony and vampires and other stereotypes. So, on that note, guys, tomorrow is a very supersized episode of Flesh Wound Horror. We are going to have, it'll be a longer one.
It'll probably balance out since we're down a man.
Oh, okay.
But we got 6 features and TV Terror Talk tomorrow. So
we do. And what are you damning about? Cliff, I think the chat. Oh,
yeah, you see it now, don't you?
That you don't even believe that, Cliff.
I would put it on the screen if you don't leave
feelings. God,
I don't disagree with them. I'm just. I was being good, not acknowledging it.
I didn't see it. Okay, Todd's maybe seeing it as the producer, but YouTube didn't like it. I don't know. But anyway,
sometimes it takes a minute to pop up.
Yeah, that's true. So tomorrow we're going to have reviews for Exorcist Believer, Pet Sematary Bloodlines. We're going to cover Chucky season 3.
No, we're going to cover the season premiere. I had to change that. Yes, because
bad.
that implies we're reviewing the whole season, which we are not.
We are not. But yeah. Season premiere of Chucky season 3. We're going to be reviewing When Evil Lurks, which I'm very eager to talk about. Beaten to Death.
Getting one.
I know. Totally Killer. Totally Killer.
And you still one more. You got one more. Come on, you got it.
Totally Killer.
VHS 85.
VHS 85.
Or as Pugs would say, 85. Because, he pronounces it like it says Rick. Get the fuck out of here. Sorry, Pugs.
We got a block of highly anticipated movies.
We actually had to throw an extra one in just because by the time next week, it wouldn't have been relevant.
Yeah. My mind is, I've got like the amount of notes I have because I've just been reviewing so much stuff, and I'm just like, yes, Indy, you'll get to see If I Am a Believer tomorrow night.
Pugs is really interested to hear my take as a parent. So that's what he told me. I haven't told him my opinions at all. So if anyone else cares, and hopefully I will. I'm a little bummed Pugs can't be on it live, but he will be sending in his thoughts.
Okay. Well, I think that's going to be very animated. So there's just so many movies.
I don't know where Pugs is going to land. He's been the only one so far that has been excited for it. Even I was like, I don't know about this. And normally I see a trailer, I'm like, there might be something I'll like, but this one. But we'll talk about it and see how I actually feel about it tomorrow.
Yeah, I would say out of the 4 of us, Pugs is usually the hardest to predict. Sometimes you just never know with Pugs.
It depends what it is. It really, if there's certain key things you're like, Pugs loves it. But if you don't have those, I get what you mean. Like I can't call for sure.
Yeah, he's the hardest.
He is the biggest Exorcist fan.
Yeah, so you might get a good variety of opinions. I don't know on these movies tomorrow. Also, this Friday the 13th, Region Free is back. We're going to be that'll be another really stacked show. So there's a lot of content this week. There'll be some surprises. I think a couple debuts on the show.
And the same day after, not at the same time.
Yes.
We'll be doing a Friday the 13th, the game stream for Friday the 13th. So anyone can jump on this Kruger's thing. So we'll talk about that more tomorrow and give it.
Now, just so they're aware, Flesh Wound Gaming, or is that going to be a simulcast with?
We're going to do both tomorrow to kind of, get the other channel a little bit more, out there. So we'll have it on both. And yeah, again, it's Kruger's thing. He'll tell more tomorrow, but it will be on both channels just so we can, get some more eyes on it.
So you'll have hours of content then to enjoy on Friday the 13th.
And I think you can play with this. I don't even know how it works. We'll talk to Kruger tomorrow. We'll discuss that at the end. I'm just got a controller and push buttons. So there you go.
There you go. And Slashtober, you don't have too much longer to wait for that, our annual slasher tournament.
Oh,
So
geez,
keep
when
an
does
eye
it?
out.
I
I
gotta
was
check.
figuring out the math because I was like, it's got to be in the next 3 days.
Yeah, I know. I'm looking at it right now. This is
Yeah.
why I need to do my monthly calendar, which I'm 10 days late. So
I need to do better about keeping a calendar. I'm not
this is the
great.
only month I haven't. It's the most important month, but I've been
Yeah.
doing everything else. But we're completely off topic. This is all
Yeah,
stuff we
that's
can
okay.
talk about off air. So on that, you
Yes.
got a little sneak peek.
There's a sneak peek at what's coming. Lots of content for you this October. And on that note, good night.
Good evening.